I don't know if you remember this. We had a tire swing on the side of the house,
Yes.
and you brought a dump truck full of mulch to lay down
Correct.
underneath of that.
Funny thing is when I ran flatbed, I'd see the box trucks and I would say, I don't think I ever would want to do a box truck. But as soon as I'd done a box truck, I liked it better because you don't have to sling straps, you don't have to sling tarp.
Did you ever try to go back and get your Class A? You were Class B.
I thought about it.
You got a medical retire
Correct.
due to not being able to pass a physical anymore.
Correct. It was tough giving up that CDL because I worked hard to earn it.
So what's going on, everyone? This is my dad here. He's a very special guest. He's in town for the weekend, so we wanted to take a little bit of time and do an interview. This is my inspiration for trucking, to be honest. He's been a truck driver when I was a kid, driving Class B trucks. And I don't know, Dad, if you remember or not, when I was in the fourth grade, we had a question in the fourth grade about, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I had put down a truck driver, and I brought it home to you thinking you'd be all impressed by it. And you're like, Zach, you could do so much better than being a truck
Yes.
driver. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
Okay. And when did you get your CDL? Do you remember?
Well, I actually started as a machinist, and the machinist industry was very unstable, so the door opened up for me to get into the truck driving industry through the state of Indiana, road crew. So I got my B class there, and I teased him because he got his A class. So I said to him, you just had to outdo your father, didn't you?
So you got your Class A CDL through the state of Indiana. You got a B though, right?
Yeah,
Not
B
an A.
class.
Gotcha. How long did it take you to get your license?
I think it was a 3-week course, and that was all that it
That's
is.
it.
Yep.
Even back then, it was still just 3 weeks. Was
Yes.
it through like a school or anything, or did they have their own program?
Well, it was the state of Indiana, Department of Transportation, the road crews.
Okay.
So they ran dump trucks, and I didn't have to get any endorsements at that point in time because it was just simply dump trucks.
Gotcha.
I did have, no, correction, I did have to get a tanker endorsement because of the water tankers.
And that was to spread salt.
Well, that was for the de-icing for the roads.
Gotcha. And did you drive a plow truck?
Yes, I did drive a plow truck, but I was only a short time with the state of Indiana, so I really didn't get a chance to plow.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you? I remember going on a couple of trips with you on the road, and I remember waking up super early in the morning. I was just a little boy at the
Yeah.
time, and I went to work, and I feel like I slept the whole day away in the passenger seat of the truck. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is so boring. I don't want to be here. Do you remember me going to work with you?
Yeah, I actually worked, I believe, for the machine shop. Or no, it was Mars Trucking.
Okay.
And then we went up to Wisconsin, and you were in the passenger seat. And I think you were about 5 or 7 years old. So
5 or 7?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I vaguely remember it. I know it was before you and Mom got together. That was one of my bigger memories. Also, I don't know if you remember this, we had a tire swing on the side of the house.
Yes.
And you brought a dump truck full of mulch to lay down
Correct.
underneath of that.
That's when I was working for the state of Indiana.
Gotcha. Okay. And then from there, as far as your driving career, where did you go from the state of Indiana?
Went from the state of Indiana to a machine shop, and that was probably my best place to work
Yeah.
because of the straight hours. So my second favorite was R&L Carriers, which was my last place to work.
Right. Okay. And then you had one more. There was a Mid-States that has
It was,
since gone under.
Yeah, Mid-States no longer exist.
Right.
And that was in Michigan City.
Okay.
And then, let's see, Mars, which
Yeah.
was in Westville. Then I finally ended up at R&L Carriers.
Gotcha. So for those that don't know, we grew up in Northwest Indiana. Don't want to give exact locations, but about 45 minutes east of Chicago is where we grew up and where I was raised and whatnot. So a trip from there to Wisconsin was quite a haul. And then, I mean, that was probably a full 10, 12-hour day, huh?
Yeah, Wisconsin was a nice state to go to. There was Mars is one of the ones that I went to Wisconsin in, but just the scenery, and that's the lovely thing about trucking is you get to enjoy the scenery.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoy that a lot too. And then did you only drive box and Class B, box trailer?
No, I drove straight truck, and the machine shop I drove flatbed. Mars I drove box truck and flatbed, and then Ardenell Carriers was a box truck.
Gotcha. Okay. Which did you prefer, box or flat?
Definitely box truck.
Why?
Well, you know, the funny thing is when I ran flatbed, I'd see the box trucks, and I would say, I don't think I ever want to do a box truck. But as soon as I'd done a box truck, I liked it better because you don't have to sling straps, you don't have to sling tarp.
So that's interesting because for me, like the majority of my career so far, I've drove dry van or box trailers, but I was on flatbed, as you know, for about a year and a half,
Right.
and I really enjoyed flatbed. I mean, it was a lot of work, but I feel like I had a direct impact in the communities.
Right.
Like we live near Chattanooga now, and there's car washes down there that I brought blowers for.
Yeah.
There's a big road construction project going on down there. I brought stuff to contribute to that.
Right.
So you can see like a direct impact in the community versus like pallets of boxes everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't really see that as much. So you did that, and then you got a medical retire
Correct.
due to not being able to pass a physical anymore.
Correct.
Okay. And what was it like hearing? How did that process go actually?
Well, it was tough because I enjoy driving, so being a truck driver was my niche.
Yeah.
So it was tough giving up that CDL because I worked hard to earn it. And I put a lot of hours under my belt to maintain it.
So what was that? I mean, and that was your career. I mean, that's how you were
Correct.
supporting us as a family and stuff. What did I wanted to ask you because I thought about this some time ago. Did you try multiple locations to try to get your physical, or did you just go to one, hear that news, and be done with it?
Yeah, because that's the one that the company used. But it was a long process because of the medical condition that I have.
Right.
It got to the point to where I couldn't hold my balance, and that's what caused me not to pass the physical.
Right. Well, I know for me, like, there's been some instances, like, they've changed the laws now, but there was a time where they would measure your neck. And if your neck was above a certain measurement, you were required to go for a sleep study. Now, there was one place that I got a physical done, and they said, you need to go for a sleep study. Well, there was a guy at work that was significantly larger than what I am, and like the back of his neck looked like a pack of sausages. Like he was a big boy.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, where did you go and get your physical? Because I know if you can pass your physical, I surely can pass mine. And he said, oh, I went over here to the neighboring town, and I went over there and I got a physical right away.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to ask you, with that medical condition, did you go to multiple locations to try to find another way in?
No, I had to accept the fact that sooner or later it would happen anyway.
Right.
So I just had to accept that fact and go on with it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that stinks. I know it was definitely a big moment in our family.
Yeah.
You know, because you're losing your career, and that's tough. And physical limitations definitely can have an impact on your CDL, as we know. Yeah, that was rough. And you said, just hearing that, what was going through your mind when you heard, okay, this is going to be happening?
Well, I knew about the physical condition prior to
Right.
the end date coming to where I couldn't drive anymore.
Right.
So I knew it was coming. So I guess it was easier for me to handle that way than what it would have been if it ended abruptly and as opposed to over time.
Now, I know at that time, like, you were trying to, I think this was probably before Uber and Lyft and stuff kind of took off.
Right.
But you were trying to help people out in the community, go pick up people and take them different places to try to earn some money. And it took a while, if I remember right, for you to get disability.
Oh, yes. Yes.
How was that time frame between the time that you lost the job to the time that you actually got disability financially?
We managed, but it was tough. It was really tough because we went from 2 incomes down to 1 income.
Right.
and then one income back to two incomes because of the disability.
Right. I'm just thinking growing up as a kid, like I never really noticed much of a change
Right.
as a kid. So I'm very thankful for that, that you guys are everything to keep everything afloat. And then going back to that fourth grade situation where I said I wanted to be a truck driver. Um, I know in my career I started at R&L working the docks,
Right.
following in your footsteps, actually working at the same terminal, and I used you as a reference and whatnot and got in. Um, what was it like for you hearing that I was going to go get my CDL?
It was exciting. I
Was it?
had a moment of pride there, I guess I could say, because you were
Really?
following in my footsteps. Yeah.
So even with the whole fourth grade thing of you can do better than that, and found out that I was going to be a truck driver, and
Yeah.
it was still a moment of pride.
Well, it's a tough career, like I've told you before, it's a stable career because there's always a demand for truckers.
Right.
But it's what you're willing to tolerate. So you'd have to find the right fit, which I did through R&L.
Right. And then I've been a truck driver now for 9 years, a little over 9 years, and most of mine was on the road. What was it like for you? Did you ever do any over the road time?
No, I didn't do any over the road, but I did do regional, which was 5 different states. So that's a close comparison to over the road. So for a single man, it's not as hard as it is for a married man to be in the trucking industry.
Right.
But then again, you have to find the right niche. You have to find the company that fits what you're looking for.
Right. Now, there's something to be said. I think you got pretty lucky with not having to be over the road from the time that you started. Do you know what year you started driving?
2000, if I remember correctly, is when I got my CDL.
Okay, gotcha. And then from then till now, I know a lot of people do try to find local jobs right out of the gate. As soon as they get their CDL, they're wanting a local job. But they're hard to come by. Most
Yes,
of
they
the
are.
local jobs, they want some experience. I'm guessing because it was through the state of Indiana that it made it easier. Maybe Class B had something to do with that versus Class A. But I know right now, as it pertains to the industry, you're almost guaranteed to have to go over the road for at least a short amount of time until you can get some experience. Did it seem like it was easier to get in by going through the state?
Well, I think I went in through the state first, and then I got the machine shop job. So with the machine shop, that's where I got time in, because most places, the rules may have changed, but most places require 2 years experience, mainly because of the insurance.
Right.
Because the insurance won't back.
Yeah,
drivers up.
insurance controls the whole, they're the puppeteers of the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing anyway. Did you ever try to go back and get your Class A? You were Class B.
I thought about it. I was Class B, and I actually had an opportunity to get it, but I didn't have anybody to train me, so to speak, as when I was working with Mars, which is no longer in business either.
Right.
But I did get the permit for Class A, but just could not get the time behind the wheel, so I just pretty much let it go.
Interesting. I'm trying to think of like the challenges, because I feel like for me, in my career, being an over-the-road truck driver for the majority of it, it's quite difficult to break into another niche within the trucking community. Like I've applied to be a dispatcher, I've applied to be a freight broker, do some things that are within the industry but not necessarily driving the truck. Now I enjoy driving the truck,
Right.
but it's very demanding. So I was trying to find a lane that I can get in with that, and I was wondering with trying to get your Class A if you felt like there was a little bit of pull in the industry to keep you as what you were.
Not necessarily. I think the more encouragement was to get the Class A because it made you more sellable, so to speak,
Right.
to companies because you carried a Class A, which made it to where you could drive the semi truck as well as a straight truck. So more bases covered.
Definitely. And then you've had all your endorsements, right?
I've had tanker and hazmat endorsement.
You didn't have to you didn't drive Class A, so you didn't have to worry
Right.
about doubles and triples.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, tanker and hazmat is what I
Yeah.
carried.
Because with a straight truck, it's basically a giant U-Haul.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about doubles and triples and messing with that.
Well, with R&L carriers, the box on the truck, I believe, if I remember correctly, was 25 foot long. So
How?
8 foot wide, 25 foot long.
Okay, and then how tall was it? Was it 13.6?
30, yeah, 13.6, yeah.
So it was the same height as a semi truck.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. So you've driven some in a semi truck,
Yes.
just trying to train and whatnot.
Correct. Mhm.
And you had already known how to handle a big truck just through the straight truck.
Right.
What are some challenges that straight truck and Class B has to face that maybe a Class A doesn't?
Well, you tend to be sent to places that a semi won't fit. So you still have space issues that you have to deal with. The physicalness of the truck and how the truck handles is different than a semi.
Right.
So you have to deal with the length as well too. So that I think would be the difference in the two different kinds of trucks.
Well, I know growing up super close to Chicago, and I try to tell people this, any older cities in general, Chicago, New York, places like that, that were around well before semi trucks even existed, they didn't have these big old semis in mind
Right.
when they're building the town.
Sure.
So a lot of the areas are tough to get into. The bridges are
A lot of low
short.
bridges, yeah.
Roads are tight. And that's really the purpose of straight trucks or Class B trucks is to
Correct.
get to those places that a big old semi truck can't get to. I know driving in Chicago, that's your favorite place to drive, right?
No.
So
But
yeah,
I must say this, though, that driving in Chicago really gave me the experience because of the conditions there. Not only had to deal with traffic, car traffic,
Right.
truck traffic, you had to deal with people traffic.
yeah,
So, and then tight roads. And I have a story that when I was driving in Chicago, I was delivering to a party store place and getting ready to pull into the alley to back up to the dock. Well, somebody was double parked on the street, and the tail swing on the box truck just barely snagged the car.
oh man,
The lady come running down the alley and, all hyped up with her phone in her hand, I'm going to call the police. Well, I said, fine, but let me back in and I'll get unloaded and we'll deal with it. So what had happened is the car didn't even belong to her. It was her friend's car.
okay,
So she got all hyped up with the police, and the police said, you already got one ticket coming. Do you want two? You were illegally parked. Had you not been parked there, this would have never happened.
really?
Because the tail swing on the truck naturally just caught the fender of the car.
Yeah, we
Back
talk
into the
about it
car.
a lot on the channel too with our crash breakdowns, that rear end swing.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and it's even a factor for straight trucks too.
Yeah.
Maybe even more so. That's crazy though that they took your side on the situation. Did you have any repercussions with the company with that?
No repercussions because she was illegally parked. It would have never happened. And I was in a tight situation because not only was she illegally parked, and she had to park there after I started making the maneuver
Okay.
because I didn't see her initially. And then there was a UPS truck that was close to the alley the entryway of the alley. So I had the conditions that I had to maneuver around, and that's what happened there.
Yeah. I mean, things happen out on the road. It's unfortunate whether whose fault it is part of the factor, but I mean, we're just driving big trucks, and I look at it this way with ratios because if you think of a car, they drive about 15,000 miles a year on average. A truck driver will drive 15,000 miles in like 3 months. So comparatively, the amount of time spent on the road versus the amount of time of a car, the ratio or probability that a ticket will occur, the ratio or probability that a accident will occur increases just because the time on the road increases. So that's what I try to think about when I see a lot of these accidents that we break down to or break down and look at is things happen. I mean, I get it. So we've talked about Chicago, grew up it's a tight city to maneuver in. Do you remember coming with me on the road at my first truck driving job?
Yes, I do.
So we were allowed to have passengers. So knowing that you had been medically retired from the job, I figured, okay, this would be a cool experience for him to get back in a truck, get to enjoy that. Do you remember going up to Chicago
Yes,
and
I
getting
do.
stuck? So what had happened is the shipper, we were told to get to the receiver at a certain time. Well, dispatch had wrong information and it was on a Saturday. Well, guess what's closed on Saturdays?
Right.
Businesses. So we get down to the end of this alley almost. It was almost an alley.
Yeah.
And the gate that we needed to get into was closed. Well, in order to make that turn or to get out of there, you had to go through their gate and turn around to be able to get out because it was a dead end.
It was very tight in there.
It was very tight. So what happened is we had to back out onto the street.
Correct.
Now, I had you hop out to help guide me, but luckily I believe a police officer
Yes.
showed up and helped stop traffic so we can get out of there. And I'm sure they have to deal with that all the time. But that was an interesting experience. What was it like for you going back out on the road after being out of the truck for so long?
Oh, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Any memorable things anything particular that you enjoyed?
Well, just the scenery, just being able to look out the window and enjoy the scenery.
Yeah. Was it what you expected being in Class B? Did it feel different than being in Class B?
A little different because you're sitting up a little bit higher in the semi as
Right.
you are the Class B truck, the box truck. But you could still see a lot of things going on traffic-wise.
Right.
Far different perspective than what you see in a car.
Right. And then you had only ever been regional. What's the furthest you had gone from Northwest Indiana?
New York
State.
New York State. I don't remember the city. It was a stamping plant for automotive,
Okay.
which was interesting because I never got to see inside of a stamping plant and see how that process works. So that's another interesting thing about trucking too, is you get into some businesses that had you not been able to do that, you wouldn't know how things are produced or how things
Right.
go.
What is the most interesting thing you've hauled?
Probably machine shop up to Wisconsin. I think that was the time that I took you. I think it was a huge gearbox is what it was.
Okay.
So that was interesting because of the weight and you have different dynamics that you have to deal with.
Gotcha. I'm trying to think. I've hauled so much stuff. I've hauled bullets before, empty, not loaded ammunition. I mean, pharmaceuticals. I think I have it on the channel, actually, though. We hauled a boat
Yeah.
from Knoxville, Tennessee, down to Alabama. Me and my boss at the time hauled 2 oversized boats that were sunken when we got there. We had to drag them out of the water, let them drain out, load them up on the truck, strap them down the best we could. They were rusted to pieces. I think that was one of my most interesting hauls. Now, you were dealing more with direct customers and stuff. Is there any interesting things that happen at customers or any interactions with them that were weird?
Well, a good percentage was businesses. I was bumping the dock more than anything else. But there's times I've had to take loads off on a lift gate and deal with it that way.
Okay. Any customer interactions or business interactions that were less than friendly?
Not really. I don't recall any bad interactions at all.
Really? I mean, this might just be a thing of the times too, where you were done a lot sooner. I don't know if the world's just gone completely mad, but I've dealt with so many rude and disrespectful shippers and receivers
Yeah.
throughout my time in it, and I was just wondering if there was anything like that for you.
Not really, but I could see where you're coming from. It just seems that people don't want to work anymore. They don't want to be there. They don't want to be on the job. They don't want to, but they complain about things costing so much or whatnot.
Right.
Do you remember when you were little and I had you sitting beside me in the Toyota pickup and I'd have you shift the gears?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing it. I think I grinded a lot, and I still grind from time to time.
Well, the interesting thing is I pushed the clutch and I'd tell you what gear to put it in. You got so used to where the gears were that you went right into the gear.
Right, without having to be told where to go.
Oh, no,
So
I would tell
learned
you.
I learned the pattern and
Yeah.
based off of the speed of the truck or whatever.
No, I would tell you second gear or first gear or whatever.
Right. And then it just
But as far as going up, I would just say shift. Or you got used to me pushing the clutch pedal and you would shift up to the next gear.
that's such a thing that's gone from today's society. Is
Yeah.
just number one, stick shifts in cars.
Yeah.
Number two, um, just that
Teenage anti-drive device, the clutch on
Yeah.
the floor.
anti-theft device.
Yeah.
But just those teenage moments of being able to sit next to your dad and shift a gear and not have to worry about being super strapped in or
Yeah.
in a bench seat truck. I mean, kids
Right.
in the front seat nowadays is such a taboo thing.
Yeah.
And then that ride up to Wisconsin was pretty memorable too. I definitely
Yeah.
remember that, and the delivering the load of mulch. So I mean, it was definitely a part of the industry. Now I do remember another time when you worked for Arnell Carriers. They were sponsoring a NASCAR driver at the
Correct.
time,
Mhm.
and they had an event at the terminal where they brought out the NASCAR.
Yeah.
Do you remember doing
Yes,
that? And then we got to go up in the trailer, and the trailer is quite interesting itself. And I
Matt
remember
Kenseth, if I remember right.
Matt Kenseth,
Yes.
yeah. Anyway, so they were fixing to start up the car. I don't know if you remember this happening or not. So I was standing outside of the NASCAR and watching them getting ready to start it up, flipping all the switches, getting everything turned on and ready to go. And they turned it on, and like everybody else had backed up ahead of time, and they turned it on, and I backed up. I was plugged my ears and backed up out of there, and I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't stand this close. So I didn't realize how loud they were. I thought it'd be
Yeah.
a Toyota Prius or something.
They don't have mufflers on it, I don't think. So I think it's open exhaust.
Really? Gotcha. What are some other things like okay, so from my experience up until recently, I've been over the road and it's been very challenging with family and kids and whatnot. Was that challenge still in existence being relatively local your whole career?
Not to the degree as it was for over the road, and Ardenell Carriers was good because it was pretty much set hours. You know, I'd go in the same time every day, although I didn't end at the same time every day, and it was pretty much Monday through Friday.
Right.
So it was a company driver. It was not regional. It was not over the road. So that's
So
where
it
the
was
difference
local.
was there. It was local.
Now, the hours, I do remember you working very long hours still.
Yes.
And oftentimes, even till after we had already gotten dinner, got our showers, and we're ready to go to bed, you were rolling in. So I know you started at about 8 o'clock in the morning. What's the longest shift you ever had as a truck driver?
Probably 14 hours, I would say.
From the time that you started your day to the time you ended at 14?
Are you talking at Ardenell Carriers?
At any of your trucking jobs?
Yeah, probably about 14 to 16 hours, right in that area.
14 to 16, okay. I mean, I know 14 is the legal, but everybody knows that you clock out and then you put your straps up, or
Yeah,
you
correct.
sweep out your trailer, or you're
Correct.
doing stuff on the dock or filling out paperwork or whatever. That ends up bleeding over way more than 14 oftentimes. Now for me, I know during COVID there was some exemptions on logbooks just to keep things moving in the country, and a lot of people don't remember that because that was almost 5 years ago at this point. But there was some exemptions to where we were able to run as hard as we could.
Right.
And it was pretty wide open, legally allowed to do it. And I think my longest day was a 22-hour day with an hour nap in the middle.
Yeah.
So it was a long one, but made a lot of money during that
Yeah.
time. So,
So that's what makes over the road quite a challenge, is because you keep on moving.
yeah,
Your truck is your house.
yeah.
You pretty much live in the truck. So
Yeah, what was it like being in the truck with me at that time doing it was a tight space for both of us to try to manage it. I mean, we made it work, but that just kind of goes to show teams is challenging.
yeah.
And for you, you never had to drive while you're riding along with me. So you were able to stay up when I was up and sleep when we slept at the same time. But a lot of the challenges with teams is you have to sleep while the truck is moving.
Correct.
And bouncing up and down and railroad tracks and sharp turns and all that stuff. It's pretty intimidating in the back. How was it? I know you took a couple naps. How were you able to sleep while you're doing that? I know that it's 9 years ago at this point that we did that, but
Well, those power naps come in handy, and sometimes all it would take is to get off on a rest stop and go to sleep for 20 minutes.
did you do that while you were driving semi trucks or
Straight trucks,
Straight
yeah.
trucks.
When I was regional, I would. The boss told me, "You get tired, pull off, take some time."
right?
So that was nice in the fact that they were flexible that way.
Good. And then a box truck doesn't have a sleeper.
Some of them do.
Really?
Some do. There was actually they converted a Kenworth into a straight truck,
Okay.
but there are some straight trucks that do have sleepers.
You're right. You're right. I remember one when I was working at a company out of Ohio. They had a super sleeper straight truck. So I'm
That's
spacing.
okay.
So did that one that when you took that trip to New York, did that have a sleeper in
Yes,
it?
I don't think it was the Ken. It might have been the Kenworth actually, but it did have a sleeper in it. Yes.
It has. Okay, so I know that's a challenge for local drivers is most of the time there's not a bed in that truck. So if you get hung up with a mechanical breakdown or you're stuck somewhere in traffic or anything or whatever's going on where you would normally over the road be like, all right, I'm done for the day, tap it out, pull off, and your bed's right there. You can go
Yeah.
to sleep. That's not always an option in day cabs or straight trucks and things like that. So how would you get rest in those situations?
Well, normally the company would have to put me up overnight at a hotel. When I took a trip to New York, they had to put me up in a hotel.
Okay.
So
So now, did you ever have any mechanical breakdowns where you got
Yes.
stuck for a couple hours?
I was up in Wisconsin one time, and the fuel started gelling up, so naturally the truck would not run properly, and I got stuck on the side of the road. So,
And you couldn't run the truck either.
well, I could idle it, but that's about it. I couldn't get down the road with it, but it gelled up to where it wouldn't run properly.
And then how long were you on the side of the road? Do you remember?
I don't recall. It was a significant amount of time.
Were you able to get any sleep?
Yes.
How? That's the question. Because
It was a day cab, but just like in a car, when you're traveling, you just kick back the seat and rest.
Gotcha. See, my go-to is the steering wheel. I'll ball
Yeah.
up a hoodie and put it in my arms and rest on the
Yeah.
steering wheel if I have
Yeah.
to. Now, I have a good friend of mine, which I'd like to have him on the channel eventually. We'll see. We actually started teaming together back at the first company that I worked with, and we've been friends ever since. Jeremy is his name.
Yeah.
And he created this method that I actually seen on one of the forums on Reddit for trucking just the
nice.
other day. And you take a fabric hammock, you tie a knot on each end and close it in the door on each side, and then you just climb up onto the seats and then roll into the
Oh,
hammock.
that's interesting.
So the first time I'd seen it is when he had done that, and
Yeah.
he showed it to me. He's like, "Come on, get up in here." I'm like, "Dude, I'm huge. There's no way that this is gonna work." He's like, "Yeah, it'll be fine. Come on." I got up in it, and it was actually pretty
Yeah.
comfortable. When you don't have a place to sleep, and that's your option, it'll do.
Yes.
I've seen people put up like a piece of plywood across both seats and have like a little air mattress that they fill up on the seats, a little twin size or something. That's a good way to sleep in day cabs or Class B. I'm trying to think of other things to ask. Anything that you want to tell me about trucking or anything like that?
Nothing I could think of.
Nothing that I don't know already? I outsmarted you? Road conditions. All right, let's talk about road conditions. As far as the quality of the roads, do you think since then or now, what's better?
I think they're probably about the same, but you definitely have to adjust your speed and distance according to the conditions.
I'm talking about like the quality of the roads.
Oh, the quality of the roads.
Do you think it was worse or better back in 2000?
I don't see much of a difference, really.
is about the same no
About the
matter
same.
where.
Yeah, Chicago is terrible.
Yeah. Well, the equivalent
Probably the major cities would be.
yeah. Yeah, so a lot of the equivalent for the Chicago down in this area is Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think I've taken you through Atlanta yet,
No.
or you haven't had to experience Atlanta. It's a madhouse.
Yeah.
You know, people driving everywhere, all kinds of crazy. But I think it's just a problem in big cities in general.
Yeah.
You just have to deal with people being crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for me, I don't know you, you're a little bit more conservative as far as your driving. For me, I feel like I have to drive differently when I'm in a big city.
More aggressive.
More
Yeah.
aggressively, otherwise you're going to get ran over.
Yes, absolutely.
So you kind of have to force your way into traffic, and nobody listens to a turn signal saying, hey, I'm trying to
Right.
get over here.
Right.
So
Even less today.
yeah, I've heard it said before that a turn signal isn't a question, it's a notification.
Yes.
You know, I'm coming over.
Right.
You should probably get out of the way.
Right.
So, I mean, there's different ways to look at it. Generally, I try to take it slow, and if it takes me a couple
Turn
extra
signal
seconds.
is not a notification to get up on the side of the vehicle either.
Right, yeah. Going from being a truck driver to now exclusively being in cars, and you have been for years now, do you feel like things are different as far as your perspective on trucks and being aware of trucks and the surroundings, having that experience?
Well, having that experience, I've gained more respect for truck drivers, and I actually watch out if a truck was wanting to come over, I give them the lane. So
Right.
it's that mutual respect.
Yeah. And I think as a general, I'd say probably get 80% of people in the way of being conscious of a truck turning and things like that. They typically try to move out of the way or be courteous and let truck drivers through. Do you think that the courtesy level has gone down?
Absolutely. The courtesy level just does not seem to be there, and it's so much appreciated by a truck driver when a car is being courteous.
It is. It really is. It makes a world of difference. It just changes your day. Like, you know, I'm tooting the horn. Yay, thank you. You're awesome. Woohoo. Waving at them. It just makes it easier. I mean, we got to navigate these giant vehicles
Right.
through a bunch of stuff, and a little bit of courtesy really does go a long
Yeah.
way. So,
I don't think the general person knows what it takes to maneuver a truck and what all is involved. They just assume that because they're in a car that the truck handles the same way, which is not the case at all.
well, I've talked to a bunch of people, and it seems like everybody that I mention, hey, I'm a truck driver, hey, I've been driving for 9 years, whatever it is, I'd say a good 90% of people will say, oh, my uncle's a truck driver. Oh, my
Yeah.
dad's a truck driver. Oh, my brother's a truck. My son's a truck driver.
Mhm.
You know, everybody has somebody, and I guess I can't say everybody, but majority of people have somebody in their lives that is or has driven a truck. So it kind of boggles my mind that the communication from cars to trucks is kind of lost, and obviously there is a bit of a vendetta against truck drivers as a
Yeah.
general rule. I feel like a lot of people don't like truck drivers, and I get it. We're huge, we take up a lot of space, we're slow, we're in the way. I get it to that degree that we're a pain in the butt to be around, but at the same time, we're very necessary, and as a general rule, I think truck drivers are professional for the most part. Now,
Mhm.
we've seen in a lot of the crash reactions or other things that they're not.
Right.
You know, they don't know how to drive. They haven't been trained right. They have some issues that they need to work out. But I think as a general, just like I think as a general, standard motorists, you know, driving four-wheelers and stuff, they are courteous.
Mhm.
So you have your handful of people in every industry and everything
Sure.
you do that are just turds. I mean, there's no better way to put it.
Well, you see, it's funny, not only in the truck driving industry, but generally speaking, it seems to be the uninformed that complain the loudest. If you're going to complain, get informed on things. You know,
Yeah.
get some education on it. Then maybe you get a better understanding, and then that'll help tamper down that complaint or whatever.
Gotcha. And I agree. If you have somebody in your life that you think is a truck driver or you know is a truck driver, ask them to take a ride along. I mean, it would be definitely helpful to hop up in the truck even for a day or a couple hours and just see what they see. And I think it would definitely make a difference in people's perspective of truck drivers. But if you can go out with somebody for a week, that's even better. I mean, you'll get the full ride there, going to shippers and receivers and things like that. I think that'd be super helpful as a general rule.
You know, you mentioned about streets, and you know, in the city I live in, they have a YouTube channel that you can do exactly that. You can get informed because they have the city meetings that are on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize, you know, there's a lot of complainers about the condition of the streets in the town I live in. But I didn't know how much it really costs to resurface the road. And to pave 1 mile of road, that's grinding it up and resurfacing it, $2 million 1 mile.
Whoa.
So that really turns the light bulb on for things. But yet, it's like I said, the uninformed are the ones that complain the loudest. So
I'm gonna still complain about terrible roads. I mean, I know there's finances in for infrastructure and things
Yeah.
like that, and then, well, you live up in Indiana, so you have to deal with the freezing and the thawing, which
Correct.
cracks the roads all up.
Correct.
And there's a running joke in the industry of the Ohio-Indiana line.
Yeah.
On I-70, I believe it is, that as soon as you hit it, you know when you're in Indiana without even seeing the sign, just based off of the
Right.
road. So, I mean, a neighboring state like that, Ohio, they get plenty of snow and freezing and thawing. I don't know. I think, and then there's Shreveport, Louisiana. Holy cow, that's rough. I think the budget for that is different per each town. I'm not sure how that works, whether it's paid to the towns, paid to the state for infrastructure, or what that is. But
Well, the way it works in the town I'm in is they have a wheel tax. The wheel tax only covers a small portion of it. They get grants from the government in order to finance the roads. But the thing I was getting at is there's processes that take place. So roads are going to get paved, roads are going to get done. It's just a matter of the financing and the timing. They've put forth a notification of what roads are going to get done at what time, or what the process is as far as what order they're going to be in. So it's happening. It's just people have impatience for it to get done because the financing has to be there, the funding has to be there, and with everything going up in price, of course, less can be done on a less timely fashion.
gotcha. Yeah, I think that as a general rule, as humans, I think it'd be best to take a step back and maybe think about what needs to be done in order for a goal to be accomplished. And I
Right.
think if we all just be a little bit more patient and more kind with each other, I think it
Absolutely.
could go a long way. All right, Dad. Well, I appreciate you being on the channel and taking some time to talk with me. And I'm so glad you got to come down here and visit me for a couple of days. We'll have to make a trip back up there to Indiana sometime soon, and we'll hang out up there and talk and do more of what we normally do. We're just sitting here having a conversation like we normally do. But thanks for taking the time and being comfortable to get on camera and record. And if you'd like more interviews like this, I'm working on trying to get in contact with some other people, but Papa219 over here decided to join me today, and I really appreciate his time, and we'll catch you on the next one. All right?
Thank you for having me as your guest.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. That's going to be it for this one. We'll see you on the next one. All right? Bye.